He asked for it. Not in a moment of weakness. Not under a spell he couldn't fight. Vegeta looked at a wizard who turned men into monsters, and he volunteered. He let the darkness back in on purpose, because somewhere along the way he had decided that the things that made him human had also made him weak. The wife. The son. The years of something that almost resembled peace. He believed those things had cost him an edge. That love had softened the blade. And there was one measurement that mattered to him more than his own soul, the distance between himself and another man. So he burned it all down to close that distance. He threw away everything good he had become, to be a little less far behind. And here is the part that should disturb you. The man he was chasing wasn't even looking back. You have a Kakarot. Maybe you've never said the name out loud. Maybe you'd be embarrassed too. But there is someone, a person, a version of a person, sometimes just the idea of a person, who became the scoreboard you keep your life against. Not a goal. A measurement. The one whose existence quietly decides whether yours counts. And you tell yourself a story about ambition. About drive. About healthy competition making you better. But ask the harder question. Not whether you're behind, you already feel that. Ask who you handed the ruler to. Ask when, exactly, you agreed to let one person decide the size of your entire life. Because Vegeta spent his whole existence answering a question no one else was asking him. It started the way it starts for most of us. With a loss to someone who shouldn't have mattered. Vegeta was a prince. Elite blood, elite power, raised to believe his rank was written into his cells. And then a low-class Saiyan, a nobody, a discard, a man named Kakarot who'd been thrown away as an infant, stood across from him and didn't lose. That was the wound. Not the defeat. The fact that it came from below. A philosopher named Sartre wrote about a specific kind of pain, the pain of being seen. He called it the look. The idea is simple and brutal. Alone, you are the center of your own world, the free subject of your own life. But the moment another person looks at you, something is taken. You become an object in their world. A thing with a fixed shape, a rank, a value you no longer get to set. And it gets worse. Watch Vegeta on Namek. The Super Saiyan, the legend he chased his whole life, the transformation that was supposed to be his birthright, arrives. But it arrives in Kakarot. The one thing Vegeta wanted to be, another man becomes, in front of him. His agony there is not private. He is not disappointed in a quiet room. He is being watched becoming second. This is the engine that drives him into ruin again and again. In the Cell Saga, he hands a monster the chance to become perfect, not out of stupidity, but because he needs the challenge to mean something. He needs a stage worthy of being seen on. He says it's about strength. It's about being watched proving his strength. The recognition poisons the judgment. And it ends where we began, with a man so desperate to close the distance that he gives away his own heart for it. Sartre had a word for that, too. Bad faith. The lie you tell yourself to escape your own freedom. Vegeta tells himself he has no choice, that he is the prince who must surpass Kakarot, that this is simply what he is. But it was never what he was. It was what he kept choosing to be, every morning, for decades. He called a decision a destiny. That is the lie. Now stop watching Vegeta. He was never the point. Here is the part of the idea that should reach into your chest. The look doesn't need the other person to be there. Once you've been seen, once, you carry the watcher inside you. You start looking at yourself through their eyes, measuring yourself by a gaze that isn't in the room anymore. And here is what almost everyone misses about Vegeta. Goku doesn't care. Kakarot is famously, maddeningly indifferent to the rivalry. He doesn't keep score. He doesn't lie awake measuring the gap. He barely remembers it's a contest. So whose eyes is Vegeta living under? His own. He installed a judge who left the room years ago, and he kept performing for the empty chair. The man crushing Vegeta under the weight of being second was Vegeta. That's your Kakarot, too. Not the person. the version of them you built and then handed the gavel to. They are not watching you the way you watch yourself for them. They're living their life. They are not keeping your score. You are. You always were. The race that's been exhausting you for years, no one else is running it. But be honest, because the easy version of this is a lie. The rivalry didn't only ruin Vegeta. It made him. The man who arrived on Earth was a genocide. He had erased worlds without flinching. And the thing that dragged him, slowly, against his will, toward becoming a husband, a father, someone who would die for a planet he once tried to wipe out, was the gap. Chasing Kakarot pulled him through his own evil and out the other side. Without that measurement, he might have stayed a monster. And later he does something that looks like freedom. He stops trying to copy Goku. "I am not Kakarot," he says. "I am Vegeta." His own path, his own techniques, his own reason to fight. There's a version of this story where comparison was the ladder he climbed out of hell on. So maybe the gaze of the other isn't only a prison. Maybe being measured against someone is part of how we become anyone at all. Hold on to that. Don't let it go too easily. Because the most honest version of this isn't the one where comparison is the villain. It's the one where comparison built you, and still owns you. Where you grew, genuinely, and the leash only got longer. Listen to the words he chose when he finally felt free. "I am not Kakarot." Even his independence is spoken in the other man's name. At the very end, against the last and emptiest version of the monster, Vegeta finally says it out loud. "Kakarot. You are number one." We're supposed to hear that as growth. As humility. As a man who finally set down the weight. But notice where he's standing when he says it. He has already lost almost everything. The admission only arrives after the obsession has cost him his life, his pride, years he doesn't get back. And even then, even in surrender, the sentence is addressed to Goku, about Goku. His humility is still measured in the other man's units. So the question this opened with was never really why do you feel so behind? That was too easy. You feel behind because you compare. Everyone knows that. The sharper question is the one Vegeta spent a lifetime not asking. If the person you're racing isn't running, if the judge already left, then the finish line was never theirs to give you. It was yours to stop needing. So name them. The person you've been racing. Picture them clearly. Now sit with the thing that should have been obvious from the start. They are not at the finish line, waiting to see if you make it. They were never holding a stopwatch. The whole race, the years of it, the ache of it, the nights you weighed your life and found it wanting, happened in a stadium with one runner. You can keep running. Most people do. Knowing the race is empty has never been enough to make anyone leave it. You already know you could stop. Tomorrow, you'll measure yourself against them anyway.